Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Mystery Monoliths. In November 2020, a mysterious metal monolith showed up in Utah. A monolith is a large, single upright pillar, usually made of stone. It was discovered by state officials who at the time had been counting sheep from a helicopter. It was completely bizarre and looked an awful lot like the strange monolith from Stanley Kubrick's cult classic, 2001: A Space Odyssey. In the movie, the monolith is placed on the planet by extraterrestrials to jumpstart human evolution. But with the Utah monolith, it didn't appear to spark anything. It was in the middle of nowhere. Within a week, the monolith became a massive tourist attraction. Internet investigators used Google Earth to pinpoint its exact location and learned it had likely been sitting there since 2015. For over 5 years, the monolith probably sat in the desert and no one ever noticed it. And yet the moment it was swarmed by tourists, it vanished. A second monolith appeared in Romania. Days after, it was gone. At the start of December 2020, a third monolith was discovered in California at the peak of a hiking path on Pine Mountain. Within a short amount of time, a fourth monolith appeared in Pittsburgh and a fifth in Las Vegas. The one in Pittsburgh was just a publicity stunt by the owner of a shop to get more people to buy candy. But finally, a sixth monolith was discovered in the Netherlands on December 6, 2020. No other monoliths have been found since, and we don't know where these ones came from. We don't know if they were left behind by aliens or if it was some kind of elaborate hoax. If it was a hoax, it was pretty impressive to get all the monoliths in position around the globe within just days of each other. And for another matter, why had the first one been in the desert for so long? There's so many questions. Number 9. Pluto's Gate. Pluto's Gate was discovered in 2013 in the country of Turkey. This archaeological site exactly matches the description of a supposed temple leading to the underworld. This temple disappeared from the history books in the 6th century, but in ancient times had been viewed as a very literal portal to hell. As the Greek philosopher Strabo described it, this space is filled with a vapor so misty and dense that you can hardly see the ground. This place was creepy. As far as the story goes, tourists traveled from all across the ancient world to visit this temple and see for themselves the place where you could descend into oblivion. It was one of the biggest conspiracies in Greek-controlled territories 2,000 years ago. Tourists and pilgrims who arrived here, even if they were skeptical, left fully convinced that the underworld was real. When they came upon the gates, they could purchase a small bird or some other animal, like we might purchase a hot dog at a ball game. Then they let the animals loose at the gate, where the creature would immediately die. The only people who didn't die after crossing the threshold of the temple were the priests. The thing about Pluto's Gate is that it's located directly above a crack in the ground. This fissure releases poisonous gas. When a small bird or other animal gets caught in the fumes, they immediately die. The only reason the priests were able to stand it for short periods was that they were incredibly high and hallucinating, but had grown somewhat used to it. Number 8. The Elusius. In Maya mythology, there is a tale about small humanoid creatures, kind of like goblins, who cause immense chaos. They are called the Elusius, or the Little People, and the conspiracy of these mischievous beings has been passed down for centuries. They cause destruction, mayhem, and trouble wherever they go. Believe it or not, some people still think these things are real. They allegedly live around the Yucatan Peninsula and are completely invisible to humans, and can be found frolicking in the jungle and rooting around deep in caves. But of course, no one can actually see them. Not unless they wish to make themselves visible. And when they do, they look really bizarre. They have giant eyes like an owl, move quickly like a squirrel, and have various animal body parts. Pieces from a bird, parts of a deer, skin like an iguana, you know. They are exceptionally frightening figures, and sometimes leer at people in the dark with their red eyes just to make them scared for fun. While these creatures are more of a superstition today, the Maya wholeheartedly believed in them. They were said to appear to travelers as they journeyed through the jungle. An Alux would often ask for an offering, and if the traveler refused, they would gather others of their kind and cause trouble for the traveler for the rest of their journey. Sometimes they would even make them sick and then bite them at night. Number 7. The Super Dad. You may have heard the strange claim that almost every person in the world is a descendant of the great Genghis Khan. Well, this isn't some kind of crazy conspiracy, and it's not an anecdotal piece of history. It's a very real thing, even if it is hard to believe. Genghis Khan was the ruler of the Mongol Empire between 1162 and 1227. He was a ruthless warrior famous for his sexual appetite. He sired so many children with so many different women, and he did it in so many places that he has countless descendants. A massive genetic study was done in 2013 and published in the science journal Nature. Researchers discovered that as many as 16 million living males are directly linked to the Mongolian ruler. So while that's not most people on the planet, it is a lot. National Geographic reports that nearly 8% of the men around the region of the former Mongol Empire have Y chromosomes that are nearly identical. Y chromosomes pass on chunks of DNA that rarely change over generations. Using random genetic markers, scientists can go back in time and trace them to when they first occurred, in this case, 1,000 years ago. What's really shocking is that the results weren't even a big surprise. The experts say this kind of thing has happened all throughout history. Powerful men often fathered children with as many women as possible to keep their lineage going. As the researchers said, this spread of patrilineage from father to son was by selection, not by chance. Genghis Khan was no exception. He had at least 6 wives and 500 concubines, which were all female rulers and royal family members of territories he had conquered, or gifts from allies and friends. And apparently, he made time for all of them. Number 6. The Bear Lake Monster. The Bear Lake Monster is a conspiracy of a different kind. The creature in question is rooted in Native American folklore, with its first modern sighting in 1868. These days, nobody knows if the monster in the lake is a conspiracy, maybe like the Loch Ness Monster, or a myth that refuses to die. What we know for sure is that the monster has been spotted in Bear Lake, near the Utah-Idaho border, for hundreds of years. The Native Americans first told stories of a great sea beast living in the lake before Europeans ever showed up, something they called a water devil. This thing is supposedly like a marine serpent, extraordinarily fast and unlike anything else living in the area. When the settlers came, they learned the stories from the Native Americans. But the myth kept on going, and in 1868, sightings of the creature leaked into the local Desert News newspaper. Swimmers were allegedly being abducted by this beast when they got too close to the water's edge. It actually scared the residents from wandering into its depths. People wouldn't camp near the lake, and it became a quietly agreed-upon danger zone. Maybe that was the plan all along, to keep people away. Over the next century and a half, sightings continued to come in sporadically. A man named Mike Havertz was one of the most recent people to claim that he saw the beast. He said that while he was out on a boat with some friends, a horrible monster, something he couldn't see very well because it was underneath the surface, went by quickly, creating waves nearly 20 feet high. Yet no matter how hard the experts search for this monster, it's never been found. And now for number 5. But first, I want to give a big shout out to Becca and Mary Wisdom. We will definitely have some more Antarctica videos for you soon. Keep an eye out for a surprise. Thanks so much for watching and supporting Origins Explained. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Number 5. The Pisa Conspiracy. The Pisa Conspiracy was a very real conspiracy by every definition. It was a secret plot by members of the wildly powerful Pazzi family of Renaissance Florence to dispose of the Medici family, the rulers of Florence. It all started because of the Pope, the complex banking system, and a piece of land. Giovanni della Rovere, who had been appointed prefect of Rome, wanted to purchase the small town of Imola. His plan was to create a new papal state. However, Lorenzo de' Medici, head of the wealthy Medici banking family, wanted to purchase the town for himself. When Giovanni went to purchase the town, hoping to use funds from the Medici bankers, they turned him down, and so he went to the Pazzi Bank, and in the end, Imola was out of Lorenzo's reach. What happened next is almost unbelievable. The Pazzi family got the Medici family out of their way for good and went to Pope Sixtus for approval. And while the Pope didn't technically sanction the assassination, he said it would be in everyone's interest if the Medici bankers were gone. The assassination was a total miss. They killed Lorenzo's brother on April 26, 1478, but Lorenzo survived, and he secured the Medici's power in Florence while banishing the Pazzi family forever. Number 4. The Knights Templar. The Order of the Knights Templar was founded on Christmas Day 1119 by Baldwin II, King of Jerusalem. What started as a group of French knights became an order of noble warriors protecting pilgrims in the Holy Land. and later on, an army of extraordinarily wealthy Christian militants who waged war against those who would threaten the Holy Land. They continued fighting until they were betrayed, slaughtered, and destroyed beyond repair in 1291. All these years later, the Knights Templar are still a source of major conspiracy theories. But what you might not know is that the conspiracy theories started a very long time ago, almost immediately after they were executed. In the 13th century, the German poet Wolfram von Eschenbach wrote a story about the Knights Templar being the guardians of the Holy Grail. This story has never gone away, even though it was probably just a tale told through a poem. And finally, it was the confessions tortured out of the Knights Templar by the minions of King Philip IV that made them infamous with the occult. They admitted to worshipping Baphomet, which inspired yet another tale in Henry Agrippa's 16th century book, De Occulta Philosophia. The stories surrounding the purpose of the Knights Templar, their religious knowledge, secrets, and treasures track them all over the world, and they are given credit for everything from hiding the Ark of the Covenant in Ethiopia to bringing treasure to Oak Island in the United States. Number 3. Great Tartaria. The conspiracy theory of the ancient kingdom of Great Tartaria first showed up in Russia. It was Anatoly Fomenko who wrote a pseudo-historical conspiracy theory book called New Chronology. This was where the idea of Great Tartaria started, but it has since spiraled way out of control. Great Tartaria was a highly advanced civilization spread across the entire world, with its heartland being in Russia. Buildings like New York's Penn Station, the Singer Building, and even the grounds of the 1915's World Fair were all supposedly part of the Tartary Empire. Pretty much any Gilded Age building is said to be a remnant of this great empire. And just wait, because it gets even crazier. The theory says that a great flood of mud wiped out most of the ancient world prior to World War I. World War I and World War II were partially fought to help erase all evidence of the Tartary architecture still standing in Europe. These people believe that a great Russian empire already dominated the earth centuries ago, building every major structure from the White House to the Pyramid of Giza. The theory is really the canon of architecture, according to Bloomberg's Zach Mortiz. It's about as realistic as the earth being flat. Number 2. The Scottish Freemasons. The Freemasons are a very real organization, one of the oldest and most widespread fraternities in the world. Members of the Freemasons have included names such as George Washington, Harry Houdini, Winston Churchill, and even Mormon founder Joseph Smith. And because these guys are so secretive, it's no surprise that they are at the center of quite a few conspiracy theories. The earliest known document of the Freemasons being wrapped up in some bizarre conspiracy comes from 1786. It was claimed that the Freemasons worked together with the Illuminati and the Order of Jesuits to form the New World Order. This order would discreetly manipulate world events into whatever the group saw fit. And here's a little juicy information. On the US $1 bill, the Latin phrase Novus Ordo Seclorum has been printed since 1935. The direct translation is New World Order. There is no definitive proof the Freemasons are behind every major event since the 1700s. However, there's no proof against it either. These guys have been around since the medieval days, originally formed as a group of Scottish stonemasons. So now conspiracy theorists are having a blast. Number 1. The Vampire Carmilla. If you were to ask who is the original vampire, most people would probably answer with Dracula. While the character of Dracula was probably inspired by Ivan the Terrible, there is a completely different story about vampires in old literature. Years before Dracula was ever written by Bram Stoker, there was another vampire story. Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu is the original vampire novelist. He wrote the novella Carmilla in 1871. His book was a first-person account given by a young Englishwoman named Laura who fell prey to the beautiful vampire Carmilla, another lady. In this original vampire tale, Carmilla and Laura fall into a steamy romantic relationship. The maidens in the nearby towns are afflicted by a strange illness. They all eventually die, and then Laura becomes sick. She also has a recurring nightmare that a giant cat is attacking her in the night. The giant cat turned out to be Carmilla, her lover, who is also a vampire. Carmilla is eventually hunted down, staked through the yard, decapitated, and then burned. It's a pretty gruesome story, and many argue that this was the original that influenced the legend of Dracula. But since Dracula was written in Victorian times, when society was seriously suppressed and held under extremely strict moral laws, it faded into obscurity and never got famous. But when Bram Stoker's account of a male vampire came out, it became an enormous success. The big difference was that Carmilla was a lady, having relations with another lady. That was enough to cover the story up for 145 years, while Dracula reigned as the world's first famous vampire, when in fact it was Carmilla. Thanks for watching! What's your favorite vampire story out there? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye!